Let's call the Legal and Finance meeting to order for December 27th, 2017. First order of business is roll call and determination of quorum. Here. We have a quorum. Adoption of the agenda is next. Do we have a motion?
Second.
We have a.
If I may.
Richie Nordstrom.
Mr. Chair, on item 10, which is on the non-consent, we need to change the title to read authorize mayor and finance officer to sign notice and acknowledgement of assignment of the lease and sublease made by Miller and Sons Golf Cars LLC for the golf cart fleet for Meadowbrook and executive golf courses. Okay. So the primary change is notice and an acknowledgement of.
All right, duly noted.
Motion with the revision.
Okay, we have motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
And we have a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. Next on the agenda is general public comment. This is a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at the meeting on any issue not on the agenda except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. This time I have no public comment. I have no petitions for comment. So we'll close general public comment. We'll open up consent items and public comment for consent items. We have no requests for comment on consent items, so I will close public comment. Are there any sitting council or any sitting members that would like to pull any of the items on the agenda? Alderwoman Armstrong.
I'd like to pull 2, 3, and 4.
Wants to pull items 2, 3, and 4. Alderman Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Item 8 and item 10.
Okay, item 8 and item 10.
8 and or through?
8 and 10. Okay, do we have a motion to approve the remaining consent items other than excluding 2, 3, 4, 8, and 10?
So moved.
We have a motion, and do we have a second? And we have a second by Alderman Nordstrom. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. So first pulled item from the consent calendar is item number 2, approve request to purchase fire apparatus, specifically one Rosenbauer Hazmat Squad through National Joint Powers Alliance in the amount of $250,190. And I'll go to, do we have anybody who wants to speak on that item? Alderwoman Armstrong.
Yes. Permission to speak with Interim Chief Seals, please?
Absolutely.
Questions? Just given the cost of these items, we'll just go with number 2 for now. Could you just go into a little bit of detail of what it is, what it does?
So about a year ago, this kind of applies to all 3 of these items.
Okay.
A little over a year ago, we instituted Squad 1, and we did it on just a pickup chassis basis. It replaced Engine 1 downtown, and we were really trying to run a more efficient fleet, as well as try to see how we can make our large fleet, the big fire trucks and fire engines, last longer. Okay. And so by utilizing this squad concept, we're now spreading it to 2 other stations, again, to look at reducing the number of miles and wear and tear we put on our large fleet, and then also looking at running a more efficient fleet.
So, an example of spending money to save money?
Exactly.
Great.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
and this item number 2 specifically replaces a 1992 International truck. We call it Big Blue. You may have seen it around. It's a big, long, stretched out hazmat specialty vehicle.
Right.
Not real practical for running the day-to-day calls, where this squad concept will allow us. It does carry water. It does carry a fire pump. So it will, and it's on a pickup type chassis. So it'll allow us a more efficient means of running those responses, day-to-day responses, and as well as keeping miles off the fire engine that sits up there.
Perfect, great, thank you. I yield.
Let's go to Alderwoman Drury.
Thank you. May I ask Interim Chief Seals a question also, please?
Absolutely.
These 3 items are coming through CIP. Was there a time when these came from the fire department budget itself instead of CIP, or should these be coming through CIP? They seem like fire department budget items instead of CIP.
Well, a couple things with that. There are some new rules that applied to CIP recently, that any type of equipment or machinery such as this, the purchase price of each one of them needs to be greater than $250,000. Obviously, you can see 2 of those on here are greater than $250,000. Did get a one-time exception from the mayor on that 3rd item because this is something we've been working on for a while. Again, trying to look for a more efficient way to run our fleet. These squad concepts are something relatively new, but do fall under our large vehicle replacement program that we have through CIP. So again, those typically replace the large fire trucks and fire engines. About of the total $765,985, $536,000 and change is coming from CIP for these 3 purchases. That was money that was already programmed into CIP for next year for our large vehicle replacement program. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, just was curious as to why it came out of CIP instead of the fire department budget.
That's where our large vehicle replacement program is, but I think.
May I ask Pauline Sumpton a question? Thank you, Chief.
Just to tag on that, there was a time where some of the money was coming from the general fund and some of it was coming from the CIP budget. When it comes from the general fund, we were doing lease purchases, and when it comes from the CIP, we do the outright purchases, which at the end of the day is a better use of the money because you're not paying the interest cost. A few years back, I want to say it was the 2009, going forward for the 2010 budget, when the economy was seeing the decline here in Rapid City, it was decided at that time that we were going to keep people in their jobs and do without things. And so some of the first things that were cut in that budget session were the big ticket dollar item. And so it became very aware at that time that you're not guaranteed the funding in the general fund, and you're still not guaranteed in the CIP, but it's much more volatile in the general fund because it relies so heavily on property taxes and sales tax that any fluctuation could be detrimental to our large fleet replacement. Good example is talk to the street department on that. We're just now getting back to buying those things outright instead of lease purchases as well. And so they had a loan out on some equipment, and we decided at the time that was the last that it was going to be paid for out of there, and any of those big type items would start coming out of CIP specifically.
Okay, thank you.
Let's go to Alderman Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may first make a motion to approve number 2.
We have a motion by Alderman Nordstrom and a second by Alderwoman Armstrong to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to add on to the conversation here is that since being the CIP chair, being involved with this changes, and I didn't recall exactly when all the changes took place, and the $250,000 limit was, I don't remember the exact date when that got changed, but it was just very recently. And so that's a good thing to help us out with the street repair items that actually are a great need that we've seen a lot more of. And now we'll have to readdress that item through the priority-based budgeting process for 2019. And that'll be interesting to see that conversation in the surveys that are out there in the public, how that comes forward, and we get the responses back from the public on that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I yield.
Still have no motion on this item? Or we do have a motion to approve?
And I second.
No other speakers? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Item passes. Item number 3 on the consent calendar is approve the request to purchase fire apparatus, specifically one Rosenbauer Rescue Squad through National Joint Powers Alliance in the amount of $294,101. Do we have a motion? Motion to by Nordstrom, second by Armstrong. No one wants to speak on that item? I think we got all the answers. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Item passes. Item number 4 on the consent calendar, approve request to purchase fire apparatus, specifically one Rosenbauer squad, through National Joint Powers Alliance in the amount of $221,000 and $694. Sorry. A motion, please.
Move to approve.
We have a motion by Drury and a second by Armstrong. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Item passes. Item number 8 on the agenda, approve resolution number 2017-091B, a resolution levying assessment for cleanup of miscellaneous property. And we'll go to Alderman Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, if I may make a motion to approve this resolution.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What we're facing here on, we've only got 3 items this time on the resolution, but we're starting to see more and more of the city doing property management. And I'm going to say, use the word frequent flyers. These three items are, that are on the list are what I call frequent flyers. We've been seeing them in the past. They're reoccurring, and I just wanted to make sure that the committee was aware that we do have, and I'm starting to see more of this happening throughout the city. And it's one of those things we should be considering taking a look at for future resolutions for resolving this type of problem. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll yield.
No other speakers? Seeing no other speakers, we have a motion to approve. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, item passes. Number 10 on the agenda, I'll read that in with the new title, authorize mayor and finance officer to sign a notice and acknowledgement of assignment of lease and sublease made by Miller & Sons Golf Cars LLC for golf cart fleet for Meadowbrook and executive golf courses. Do we have a motion? We'll go to Alderman Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I'll make the motion to authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign the notice and acknowledgement of the assignment. And I have Carla Cushman in the audience to clarify what this is, and just also update the committee that there were some last-minute links that came up to the agenda so that we have some further filling in the blanks, shall I say, Carla, of what's being addressed in those new links.
Well, the item that's attached to the agenda this morning has all of the relevant information. Alderman Nordstrom pointed out to me that it was missing the dollar amount and the date that it was due, which those are 2 important provisions, but the one that's attached to the agenda has all the information. So the document here is kind of following up on an RFP for the golf cars, which Parks and Rec did, and you approved a few meetings ago, and this is just to allow the vendor that we contracted with for the golf cars to finance the purchase of the golf cars that we're leasing it. And I've looked over these and had a few comments, and the ones that are before you today really don't affect at all the city's rights that we have to the sublease that was awarded in the proposal. So,
thank you, Carla. Essentially, what I was asking in the original question, I don't know that you were involved in the thread on this, but one of the questions I had originally was that this is a little bit different process what we're doing for this particular line item in the budget. Am I saying that correctly? That the process that we're going through is letting the golf cart company be the financier or the bank, basically?
well, they're contracting with the bank, TCF Finance, to purchase the golf carts that they're leasing to us through that from the lease agreement that we have with them. So this is just assigning their rights under the lease that they have with us to get paid, and it's something that the bank is asking for on their side. It doesn't, like I said, it doesn't really affect our what we're doing here, other than it's possible we'll pay the bank directly instead of paying the vendor. That's the one thing that I think could occur. But.
Sure. But I think the process makes sense, and how this is being done, this little tweak, if you will.
It's a little unusual to have this step, but it's not really affecting the city's rights at all. So,
Thank you. I'll yield.
Let's go to Alderwoman Armstrong.
I have a question, please.
okay.
In this notice of acknowledgement and assignment of lease, number 5, it says user acknowledges that blank semi-annual due in May and September rentals of $17,815. Is that the full amount that's going to be paid, or is it broken into two like $8,900 each, or is it $17,800 each?
It's $17,815 apiece, and there will be 10 semi-annual payments.
Okay, it was just blank. I just wanted
Okay,
to clarify.
it should say 10. So
Okay.
I'll get that updated.
Great, thank you. I yield.
Okay, very good. So let's clean this up. I think you wanted to motion, but let's get a motion to approve, or because we're authorizing the mayor and finance officer to sign this. So if we can get a motion and a second, that would be great. You don't necessarily have to read it. I think you just started speaking, then said you wanted to make a motion, so let's.
Sorry if I didn't clarify the motion. I'll read the whole thing just so the public is understanding what we're trying to do here.
Very good.
Thank you. My motion is to authorize the mayor and finance officer to sign notice and acknowledgement of assignment of lease and sublease by Miller & Sons Golf Cars, LLC, for golf cart fleet for Meadowbrook and Executive Golf Courses.
Second.
We have a motion by Nordstrom and a second by Drury. Seeing no other people wanting to speak on the item, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes. That ends the consent calendar. Opening non-consent items 11 through 13. I'll open public comment. I have no requests to speak on these items. So I will close public comment. That brings us to item number 11, which is to appeal the denial for alterations to the historic structure located at 430 Main Street pursuant to SDCL 119A-11.1 and RCMC 17.54080, and this was continued from the December 13 Legal and Finance Committee meeting. Alderman Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The applicant has desired to withdraw this application at this time, so I'll make the motion to acknowledge the withdrawal of this application of the denial for alterations to this historic structure.
Okay, we have a motion of acknowledgement from Alderman Nordstrom and a second by Armstrong to withdraw the item per the applicant's request. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes. Item 12 under the City Attorney's Office is the second reading and recommendation of ordinance number 6213, an ordinance amending Chapter 5.36 of the Rapid City Municipal Code relating to pawnbrokers, secondhand dealers, and gems and precious metals dealers. We have a motion to approve by Armstrong and a second by Drury. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes. Item 13 on the agenda, second reading and recommendation of ordinance 6216, an ordinance amending section 5.52130 of the Rapid City Municipal Code relating to merchant security vehicle identification. And we will go to Alderman Nordstrom.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. If Chief Chagris is with hearing distance, I'd like to ask him, and maybe I should make a motion first to continue this item for 2 weeks to the next Legal and Finance, but I would like to make that motion and then ask the Chief for an update.
Okay, so let's deal with the motion. We have a motion to continue for 2 weeks to the next Legal and Finance meeting. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Alderwoman Armstrong. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I may withdraw this motion, but there's some conversation that was held with Black Hills Patrol last night, and I didn't have a chance to have an opportunity to visit with you to bring forward some of their comments so that you could hear them firsthand. And I don't know that this is the appropriate place to bring those comments forward to you. So that's the reason why I would like to have this continued on that, because some of this information is somewhat sensitive and maybe even confidential. So if that's okay with you, I'd like to continue it.
Yeah, I would just say that this is something that we have been trying to get changed for several years, as we discussed the previous Monday night. So delaying it a few more weeks is no problem at all.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Very good then. Seeing no other speakers, all those in favor of continuing the item for the next 2 weeks until the next Legal and Finance meeting, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes. We have a motion to adjourn by Armstrong and a second by Drury. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed,
Happy New Year.
we are adjourned.